I'm delighted to be joined by Lord Timothy Kirkhope, who is a former immigration minister and a former MEP. Welcome to the show, Lord Kirkhope.
Good morning, Ed, and compliments of the season to you.
Yes, Happy New Year to you, Tim Kirkhope. Was this a mistake? Can you remember what you thought in 2004? Did you think there should have been a break? I think France and Germany both had a break. Should Britain have had a break?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was by then a member of the European Parliament, and I was involved with the Libe Committee, which was the committee dealing with immigration there. And we put up a number of protests saying that, we couldn't understand, for instance, in 2004, why Britain had been one of only, I think, 2 or 3 countries in Europe that had decided not to take advantage of the 7-year transition period for these new states in terms of immigration. In other words, we could have monitored and slowly, if you like, transited to freedom of movement if we'd wanted to. So we couldn't quite understand the reasoning behind it. We never got a sensible reason. All we knew, of course, was that when Romania and Bulgaria came in 3 years later, clearly Tony Blair and his colleagues had learnt their lesson, because we then adopted the transition period with some enthusiasm in 2007 for those other countries. So clearly they must have realised in that 3-year period that what they did in 2004 wasn't very sensible.
Yes, it's true. I mean, we forget as well how, frankly, poor Eastern Europe was at the time. So it made economic sense for anyone to come over in 2004, particularly if they couldn't live and work in other wealthy countries like France and Germany. It's also, to me, another example of, dare I say it, cheap shot of the bureaucrats getting it wrong. Because I think Tony Blair was advised that we would only see 10 to 15,000 Eastern Europeans coming. In fact, we got, I think, 90,000 in the first year.
You're almost right. I think about 13,000 and 87,000 were the two figures, I think. But it then went up again after that, quite dramatically. And, you know, clearly our lesson was being learned rather hardly. Having said that, though, Ed, I do want to say that the arrival, particularly in that first tranche of countries, including Poland and the Czech Republic particularly, we did take quite a lot of people into our health services and social service areas, where they remained and served us enormously faithfully and enormously professionally from then on. So, I mean, there were some benefits. The only trouble was that by opening the doors or the gates so wide, you know, we were allowing all kinds of people to come into the country, many of whom I think were probably not ideally suited to the economic conditions or our employment market.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim, in the sense that I live in West London, which has a huge Polish community, and we forget, you know, we remember the enormous contribution the Poles made to the war effort. I mean, the Polish plumber became a sort of mythical figure, but I guess that's both the benefit and the negative. The benefit being that you got skilled workers, but you also drove down the wages of quite a lot of working people, builders, plumbers, taxi drivers. Do you think there were the seeds, not the seeds of Brexit, but do you think it contributed to this kind of feeling that we needed Brexit to stop so many people coming to the country?
Yeah, I think it probably did. I mean, I don't want to hark back too much into history, when most people listening to this probably weren't hardly born. But when I was the immigration minister in 96, 97, one of my little claims to fame is I did manage to get the net migration figures down to a very few thousand altogether, because we took different policies in those days, and the policies we took emphasized the priority of removing people from the country who were here illegally. And that seems to have, that fell apart under Blair, but it also, I'm afraid to say, and the last government even, we did not retrieve that particularly well. And that was the thing, in a way, that most people got annoyed about. People here illegally in this country, and I'm not talking now about asylum seekers, actually, Ed, because the vast majority of illegal people in this country right now didn't come by way of boats across the channel. They came here in other ways, subterfuge.
So it can be done, Tim Kirkhope.
It was done. We did do it in the last years of the Conservative government to 97. When Michael Howard was the Home Secretary, I was the Immigration Minister. We actually did achieve it. And you could look at the graphs, and the graphs that have been displayed on a number of things. You'll see the dip between 96 and 97 when we really had control. So, yeah, of course you can do it. And I think that is another reason why the new government would have my support if, in fact, it is going to take on the priority of removing people. I think they're starting to do that, removing people who are here illegally, because that's what really annoys the vast majority of people.
Absolutely right. It's about the British sense of fair play. Lord Kirkhope, I think Keir Starmer needs to give you a call. Thank you for coming on the show and talking us through the revelation that Tony Blair was urged to put a brake on immigration from Eastern Europe back in 2004.